Hello everyone and welcome to the video. This is a remake of my first ever proper video, because there's a lot more I have to say on the topic of Terror Time since that original video. Unlike my last video, it's probably not worth watching the original one over this one, especially considering that I sounded really unwell in that one because, well, I was. You have no idea how many sniffles I had to edit of that one. There's also a couple things I got wrong, and I was obviously just starting making videos when I never had before. Also, thank you all for 2,000 subscribers. I'm not making a whole video like I used to for that, and I'm still honestly processing the fact I got 100, like that is just insane. This video was never intended to be a 2K special, but absolutely works as one. Anyway, I'll cover each version of Terror Time in the English games anyway, as I haven't played any of the Japanese games, though I've heard Terror Time isn't really in any of them, so it doesn't really matter, and discuss what I like and dislike about each version, how Terror Time happens, and at the end I'll rank them and attempt to create the best version of Terror Time by combining the best elements of each one. In the Yokai Watch universe, Terror Time is supposed to happen when you're out when you're not supposed to be, as a way to punish children and teach them to be good. The Onis that appear in Terror Time are also said to appear in the nightmares of misbehaving children. In the actual games though, Terror Time can happen at any time in any outdoor area in Springdale, including Old Springdale, apart from Mount Wildwood and Excellent Tower in Yokai Watch 2. For the longest time, I believed that it could occur in Harrisville and San Fantasco, as they appear as locations in Blasters, but apparently not for some reason. I mean, it can happen in Sparkopolis, but not Harrisville and San Fantasco. Makes sense. Anyway, how exactly does this work? Well, I found a Reddit post, which I'll link in the description, which explains it. There's always a timer running. Well, I'll call it the Terror Timer. When it runs out, Terror Time happens. The Terror Timer will completely stop when you're in a place where it can't occur, and it will run faster late at night. The length of the Terror Timer is completely random, ranging from 5 minutes to 2 hours after each Terror Time. In Yokai Watch 2 and 3, you can see how close Terror Time is by checking the weather app. If it says Advisory, then Terror Timer has less than 6 minutes left, and if it says Warning, then it has less than 3 minutes left. When I first saw this, my mind was blown, and I was thinking, it all makes sense now. The Reddit post also has a very detailed guide on Terror Time in Yokai Watch 2, so check it out if you're interested, as I won't be bringing it up again. In Terror Time, the player must try to get to the exit without being caught by the Oni, which can be difficult as there will be other yokai you must avoid as well, or else they will alert the Oni to your location. If the player wants to be risky though, they could try and get extra rewards by collecting chests or Oni ores depending on the game. If the player has a high enough level team, they can defeat the Oni and collect the rewards with no risk involved. There are 3 different Onis: Gargros, Orgolos, and Orkanos. Gargros is the easiest of the 3, and once you defeat him, the next time Terror Time happens, Orgolos can have a chance of appearing instead, and when Orgolos is beaten, Orkanos can have a chance to appear as well. In the first game, the player is introduced to Terror Time in the 4th chapter of the story, where Nate is looking to get his watch rank upgraded. Mr. Goodsight, the owner of Times and More, the watch shop, tasks him with getting various items. While looking for one of these items, Nate finds a yokai Baku who eats people's dreams. Mr. Goodsight then tasks Nate with going to the hot springs at night, but Nate can't do that as if his parents caught him, he'd be screwed. But luckily, Baku can take his place in bed while he goes out at night. At night, once Nate leaves the house, all of a sudden the watch starts counting down. 3, 2, 1. This is when we're first introduced to Terror Time. I'm gonna be honest, this really scared me when I was younger playing this for the first time, and I would sometimes just stay in Mount Wildwood because I knew it couldn't happen there. In this game, there are chests scattered around the map, which can give you really good items such as fusion items and equipment. Something else to note is that sometimes Terror Time occurs when you go through certain doors in the Infinite Inferno that are blue on the map, but only the first time you go through them. And like I've said, your team needs to be very high leveled in order to defeat the Onis. During a normal playthrough, or before your yokai are high leveled, Terror Time can be quite annoying when it happens, but when you're higher leveled, you usually see it as an opportunity to get good items once you defeat the Oni. Or at least I do anyway. Another thing to note is that the minions, Suspicioni and Leodoni, can sometimes spawn right in front of you with no warning, which I find very annoying, as well as the fact that you have no idea when they can see you, making it more confusing. It can also be annoying when you're trying to trigger Terror Time and you just have to leave your 3DS on for a while. In my opinion, this is still the best version of Terror Time, as you're still guaranteed to get good items instead of leaving up to chance, as we'll see with Yokai Watch 2. The second game introduces Terror Time basically the same way as the first game. Nate tries to get his watch upgraded, he befriends Baku, and Mr. Goodsight needs him to go at night to get something. Terror Time works differently in this game, because you don't even fight the Onis in this one. That's right, they just one-shot you and send you straight to bed when they catch you. Instead, you have to use items like blaze bombs and rocket punches to defeat them. Though you can fight the Onis normally in other places in the game. I like how you don't have to be high level to defeat them, but I don't like how they just one-shot you. The minions this time are replaced by Patrol-Eye, a never before seen yokai which you unfortunately can't befriend. Another thing is that they only can jump to a random location, or can jump to you when you're being chased. Also, after every third of the timer has passed, a second Oni can spawn, which I would like if you actually fought them in this game instead of using items. Instead of chests, there are Oni orbs scattered around the map for you to collect, and they also infinitely respawn so you can collect as many as you like before the very long time limit runs out. Right, yeah, the time limit. It's very long, so it's unlikely to run out, but the door doesn't spawn until a third of the timer has passed, making it so you have to wait a very long time if you just want to escape. At that point, I'd rather just get smacked by the Oni. I get that it incentivizes getting Oni orbs, but part of what I liked about Yokai Watch 1s is that you can just leave if you want to, no questions asked. Once you escape, the amount of Oni orbs you collected will be spent on the Oni Crank-Kai, which, just like a regular Crank-Kai, gives you a random prize. The more Oni orbs you collect, the higher chance of getting something good out of the Oni Crank-Kai. The thing is though, you need an extremely high amount of Oni orbs to get anything good, so it's probably not even worth collecting them if you're not going to collect a ton. I still prefer 1, as even if you only get 1 chest, you still get a good item, whereas in 2, if you collect a small amount of Oni orbs, you're not getting anything good. Something else to mention is that Terror Time no longer happened in the Infinite Inferno, which I'm really glad, because to be honest, I don't like this version of Terror Time that much. I'm not going to talk too much about blasters in this video, as it's kind of its own thing, but I will talk about blasters in 2, as it is heavily based off that game's version of Terror Time. Blasters and Psychic Blasters in 2 is basically Terror Time, but you play as the yokai, and there are more bosses than just the Onis, which are way weaker in this. Each yokai has their own moves and stats which help them defeat bosses. Something I find really weird is how there was no online for the mode in 2 and it was local only. Personally, I find Dark QB really useful in this mode when playing solo, as he is Drain attribute and can heal himself. Just like in 2's Terror Time, there are items you can use, and Oni orbs to collect. The unlock requirements for bosses can be really annoying to do, like, I can't really bother to collect 2,000 Oni orbs and get 300 best Oni orbs rewarder, snap 30 yokai with the yokai cam, collect 30 different creatures, or defeat 30 Gargos. Beating all the bosses with this mode was something I was gonna do, but then I saw the boss unlock requirements, I was like, nah, I ain't doing that. And even then, since the original video, I'm not, no. Which is a shame, as these bosses seem really fun to fight. Every day, you can obtain an Oni Misfortune, which can make bosses harder to get more rewards. There are even bosses exclusive to this mod, such as Rubius J, Hardy Hound, and He Knows All. They then went on to make Blasters its own game, which I won't talk about here because it doesn't really have anything to do with Terror Time, other than the fact it's supposed to take place during Terror Time. Man, I miss this game. RIP 3DS Online, except not, because plugins are now a thing, so yay! Similar to the first 2 games, Terror Time was introduced early on in the story, but this time with Haley instead of Nate, as he's in BBQ. Unlike the other games where the watch counts down from 3, instead in this game, a red cylinder transports you to Terror Time, which I don't like nearly as much. One difference in this version is that the door spawns right away again, which is good. Though this time, instead of being able to exit right away, you have to find the key somewhere on the map, and it could even be behind the Oni, and I think it's alright. Oni orbs are still a thing in this one, but there are only 10 of them to collect, with the Oni Crankai also returning, working the same as in 2, except now it's easier to get good rewards because there are only 10 to collect. Patrol eyes now have visible sight, so you know where exactly they can see you. There are even some, this time with different lines of sight, with some just looking straight forward, which is a massive improvement. When the Oni is chasing after you, if you go to a certain spot on the map, you'll turn invisible for a while, and the Oni will no longer chase you. Just like in 1, you actually fight the Onis in this game, though they are a bit easier than before, which I think is mainly due to 3's battle system, which makes dodging attacks easier, and also their moves being more similar to their moves in blasters, which can be avoided, unlike in 1 and 2, where they will 1 or 2 shot your yokai with most attacks that can't be dodged. Overall, better than 2's, and does some things better than 1, but I still prefer 1's overall. Something really weird that happened the other day on stream is that, I was grinding for Gate Globes, and I encountered Terror Time in Yokai Watch 3. And I hadn't beaten Gargos, I hadn't beaten any Oni yet, hadn't beaten Gargos, and Ogrelus appeared, which is very strange. This has never happened before. Thought that was something to note. Not sure if it's a bug or what, but there you go. Something else is that there's an aura you can get from Mr. Wonderful, which speeds up the terror timer, and makes it so you're guaranteed to encounter Zombie Knight, which I'll talk about next. Whilst terror time is still a thing in Springdale, in BBQ it's replaced with its American counterpart, Zombie Knight. It's once again introduced in the story early on, but on Nate's side this time. It can happen at random when you go to sleep in BBQ, or you can make it guaranteed to happen when wearing the Shambling Shorts. It can also be triggered by Clown Time, but I've talked about that in another video. The fact that it only occurs when you sleep makes it easily avoidable other than the first time by just saving before you go to bed. In Zombie Night, there will be zombies wandering the streets, which you can kill with the Zombie Whomper. And just like Patrol Eyes, zombies have their own line of sight and will chase after the player when they are seen. Nate actually has HP and isn't one-shot like in 2's Terror Time. There are different levels in Zombie Night, each having a different location and different zombie yokai. The goal is to get to the location and ring the bell without being killed. The different zombie yokai have different abilities, like Necrodimmy being invisible on the minimap, and Necronyan being a faster, stronger enemy. Others include Necromutt, Necro-Owl, Necrosnartle, and even Zomgrillos. In the different levels, there are items and upgrades you can collect, like armor upgrades, Whomper upgrades, healing items, and permanent upgrades, which can counter some zombie abilities, though they do take up space in your limited inventory, which you can also get upgrades for, meaning you really have to think about what items you take. Although the player can skip right to the last level, it's advised that you play the others just to get the upgrades, unless you're really good. In the final level, which takes place in City Hall, the Hollow Guard, who's the final boss of this mode, will appear. He can be quite hard to defeat without upgrades, as you need to beat him twice, but isn't too hard if you have upgrades, as he doesn't take too many hits to defeat. Once you've rang the bell at the top of City Hall, Zombie Night can no longer occur when going to bed in BBQ, normally at least. If you go to sleep while wearing the Shambling Shorts, however, it will now activate Endless Night, which is just the exact same as normal Zombie Night, and you can beat the final level as much as you want. Personally, I do quite like Zombie Night, as I've now beaten it several times since the original video. The only thing I don't really like is that the rewards aren't really that good, and not really worth going for. But it doesn't matter too much, as the mode is quite fun to play. As for how I'd rank these, last place definitely goes to 2, as you don't even fight the Onis, and you're not guaranteed to get something good as you would in 1. In 4th would be 3's Terror Time. I definitely think it's much better than 2's, and even does some things better than 1. It still has the Oni orbs like in 2, and the key can be tedious to obtain sometimes. 3rd is Psychic Blasters, as although I like fighting bosses as yokai, I think it's the annoying boss unlock methods and the lack of online, though that doesn't really matter now. except it does because we have online plugins that stops it from being higher. And second is surprisingly Zombie Night. I like how it is more avoidable than Terror Time, and your yokai don't need to be high leveled to beat it. Number 1 is Yokai Watch 1's Terror Time, because you're guaranteed to get good items as well as not having stuff that's in 2. For the original video, I was going to include what I would consider my perfect Terror Time, by combining the best aspects of each one, but I decided against it for whatever reason. Now that this video exists, I can finally create this perfect Terror Time that I always wanted to. First, let's start with Yokai Watch 1 as a base, with the chests, no timer, exit spawning right away, and the Onis being fightable, specifically how they were in Yokai Watch 1. From Yokai Watch 2, I would add the ability for another Oni to spawn after a certain amount of time, but only when the first is already defeated. This should make defeating the Onis much easier, as you don't have to wait for Terror Time to happen again if you're trying to defeat them all. Also from Yokai Watch 2, the Oni being able to jump. I feel that this adds more to it, even if you're never likely to see it happen. From Yokai Watch 3, completely replace the lead Onis and Suspicious Onis with all the patrol eyes and variants seen in Yokai Watch 3, as well as their vision on the map. This completely gets rid of the main problem with Yokai Watch 1 Terror Time. Also from Yokai Watch 3, the spot that makes you invisible when the Oni sees you. This should make getting the rewards easier if you aren't high enough level to defeat the Oni. Finally, this may be a controversial decision, but I'm adding Oni orbs on top of the chests. The chests will still be the main rewards, but if you manage to collect Oni orbs on top of that, then you can get a bonus reward from the Oni Crankai when you escape. They'll work like Yokai Watch 2, except much less are required to get a good reward from the Oni Crankai. And that's how I would make a perfect Terror Time. Tell me in the comments how you would do it. Well, that was an overview of Terror Time throughout the Yokai Watch games, as well as my opinions on them. This was a fun video to make, and looking back, I really like the script I wrote for the original video, which is why I reused a lot of it here. There's something about it. Anyway, like, subscribe, and comment what Terror Time is your favourite. If enough people watch this, I might make a video on other random events, such as the Red Box, Clown Time, and Your Criminals, well, except I already did, so go watch those. I redid my YouTube poll, and this time, surprisingly, Yokai Watch 3 won. Shoutouts to my members: Help Studios, Ricardo Astley, Marketable Twisted Donut Plushie, Fix, Bradley Howard, Jared King, Oakley, Francie, Any Starfall, Mystic Warriors, Time to Go Bro, Redactivism, and Terrible Gamer 9. Thank you all for the support. Thank you for 2,000 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next one.